Hey guys, DBRiot, Ryan Melrose here, and basically I'm expressing my thoughts on what it's like to be part of the comic tradition. At least that's what I call it anyway. So what I mean by that is well, when you think about it, comic books have always been a part of and a part of a proud sort of heritage, so to speak. Back when before literature was invented, we used to pass down our knowledge to the next generation by leaving cave drawings. And of course, the ancient Egyptians had their tablets and their writings all over the pyramids and everything like that. A very basic knowledge of ancient history, but you get the gist. Before the ABCs were invented, or any writing like that in every other form of language, we used pictures to tell each other what was going on. Back when a shop opened, it didn't have writings on it, it had a picture of what they sold there, and okay, that's when you went in, you bought your thing, and moved on. That's how we communicated back in those days, using art as a form. The art of drawing as a form. And well, after that, like I said before, the ABCs and writing and literature was invented, then we were reading books and we were, making, the signs we see today with, like if you're driving, you see those keep left signs, street name signs, every other sign you can think of that uses words instead of pictures on it. And, basically back during the Great Depression, which is when comic books started coming out, and early editions of Superman were coming out. You could get comic books back then for just, I think it was like 10 cents or something, or even a dime. Out back in those days. And just those few group of people who were drawing comics back then, and they pretty much built an industry overnight. And well, then came the likes of Marvel and DC that have pretty much built comics up to what they are today, as well as overcoming a lot of things that almost shut down comics for good and things like that. It's been quite a wild ride since we've had comics, and basically I just would like to say to those of you who do create comics, whether you do it for the fun of it, whether you try and make a career of it, no matter how successful you are, you should be very proud that you're continuing a tradition that goes back since cavemen were drawing pictures on caves. And that's pretty something to be proud of. In a way, I actually like comic books better than going to the movies. Because, well, for starters, you don't have to listen to any bad acting. Not that I'm saying all movies are bad acting. Of course I like movies. I just like comic books even better. Because I like seeing how artists, for example, draw their characters, their facial expressions. You knew something wasn't going the character's way, from his facial expression, the dramatic drawings, and everything like that makes a comic book great. And every time you open that first page to the new comic book, it's like you're stepping into a world that, well, isn't this one. You're completely hooked on the artwork, the story. You can almost like hear the characters talking as you're reading through it, when you're reading through that dialogue and everything like that. And there's just nothing quite like it, which is why they were such a success during the Great Depression, because it was an escape from the real world. No matter what was going on in this world, you could sit down, relax for half an hour, and just open up a comic book, and you'd forget all about it. Just reading about the exploits of these amazing characters, all these ideas that someone has put in the comic book before you. And that's why I believe it's important that, comic books still keep coming out. People still keep working on them and bringing them out. But keeping the tradition of telling stories through art alive, and I think I think it's very important. And it's definitely important to me, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. And I love what I do. I love writing and drawing my own comics, and I think a lot of other creators who work with comics enjoy it too. Not just as a career prospect, but also comics were also a very good way to express yourself. Drawing comics are a good way to express yourself. Drawing any kind of art is actually a good way of expressing yourself. But with a comic book, you can create a story, you can decide the outcome, and you can literally express yourself through what the characters are feeling, what they're doing, and what's ultimately happening in the story. Like, for example, a couple of times I've expressed, actual trauma I've been through in a comic book, except usually I'd exaggerate it a bit further so it's more entertaining and more than likely change the outcome of it. Not that I do it all the time, but more or less I will use my feelings to draw the comic. Like, for example, let's take my Life Addiction comic book. Probably the best Agent I story I've ever done. And when I made that story, it was about 6 to 7 months later after I got my heart broken by someone I was in love with. And I just remembered how I felt, like the raw feeling of what happened. Like, I felt like a huge part of me was taken away, but at the same time I sort of felt free at the same time, but I was still upset because I still loved this person, all that. And it's really opened my eyes to how to what people are like when they face change. Like, like, we get so used to things when they happen. Like, say you meet someone new, you end up in a relationship or whatever, or maybe you got that new promotion. You get so used to it being the same, but when it suddenly changes and it's taken from you, whether you and your partner break up, or whether you lost your job, you did something wrong, got fired, whatever it is, it can feel like a part of you has been taken from you, and next you got to go through the whole changes and accepting the changes. And that's what fueled the idea for the life addiction, because it's like when you get used to the way things go in your life, it's like an addiction of sorts, and when it's taken from you, you lash out and get angry like you're going through withdrawal. You understand what I mean? And that became the raw basis that fueled the overall story. Like for example, this person I broke up with, I love this person. I was head over heels in love with this person, and we were friends all that time, and getting to know each other all that time. We were used to each other, being there for each other and all that. Suddenly to have that gone, and the way I reacted and got upset, it was wow, just wow. But point is, at least on a plus side, I found a way to express it through the comic book. Even though I didn't base the comic book whatsoever on the actual incident that happened, but just the raw feeling of it, just the whole living is just one big addiction, that sort of feeling. It was able to create quite a good psychological thriller, and give one of my old bad guys from the first comics I did a new spin on his character, and something we could actually use him on, something that I felt could have been relevant by today's society. So do I think that other comic artists use their stories to express things that may have happened to them, whether it's feelings or whether they use the actual incident in the story to create a section of the comic book? Yes, I think they do. I think we all do that when we create something. We put a bit of ourselves in everything we do. Whether you're a novelist, comic artist, whatever it is. Yes, I believe that every creator does this to at least some extent. I'm no exception, and I'm sure you're no exception. And well, just my opinion. It's being a writer and artist of comics it's something to be very proud of. Whether you're a success or not, or whether you just do this for fun or just do it because you just like drawing. You are carrying on an ancient tradition of passing down history and knowledge, as well as creating entertaining and awesome stories that go with it, if that sort of makes sense. So, anyway, this is Stevie Roy, Romero signing off, and I will catch you guys again next time I do a recording. Catch you later. It's dinner time now.